Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Freedom Adventure, where we continue the story of an ambulance being converted over into a motorhome. A few of the most commonly asked questions that we get when we talk about our project here are why an ambulance? Why even a conversion? Wouldn't it just be easier to go buy one instead? So, in order to address these, we put together a list of 6 reasons that you absolutely should convert an ambulance into a motorhome. Reason number one, got to be the biggest reason for me anyway, is price. Now, I don't know how many of you out there have ever done a search or even recently have done a search on the price of a Class B or a Class C motorhome. But when we were looking at new vehicles, and what we were finding were prices anywhere between about $80,000 up to about $140,000. Fun fact though, we don't have $80,000 to $140,000. And even if we did have $80,000 to $140,000, it just doesn't seem like a good use of our money, at least not at this point in our lives anyway. Yeah, there's some finance options out there, and we did briefly consider those, but it just didn't seem like a good idea. Not for us. We don't want another payment. Matter of fact, it just seemed more like financial suicide than anything. So, what does a rig like this cost? Well, I can tell you what it cost us. This particular rig ended up costing us at $8,000. It has 150,000 miles on it, but in all fairness, when we were looking at some of the Class C and the Class B motorhomes that were used, we were looking at some pretty high mileage rigs as well, and those were gasoline engines, whereas this is the Power Stroke diesel. If we're going to buy something with miles on it, this is probably the one you want for that reason. Now, a friend of mine, he actually purchased one for, I believe it was $5,500, and he had to drive a state away in order to get it. And it's got more miles on it than this. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a tremendous difference between $80,000 to $140,000 and less than $10,000. You could have something that's probably been taken pretty good care of since it's a fleet vehicle. These are emergency vehicles, and from what I can tell you about this, from what I've seen so far, is they've done a pretty good job taking care of it. So there's just really no comparison when you're talking about the price for what you can get into one of these with, as opposed to what a brand new unit's going to cost you. And did I mention no payments? I know a lot of people will tell me there's really no comparison because you're talking about a brand new vehicle compared to, well, in this case, this is a 2000 model. So we're talking about 26 years old worth of vehicle. But man, gosh, for the flat out, guys, for the difference in price, I'm willing to roll the dice on some maintenance. Worst case, if I've got to put a transmission in this thing, we're probably talking $4,000, which I'm not going to be happy about, but I'm still feeling a whole lot better about this purchase at that point than I would be a brand new motorhome. So to wrap up reason number one, plain and simple, it's price, right? For us, that was pretty important. We wanted to be able to cash flow this build. We wanted to be able to purchase things along the way and really not have to worry too much about finances while we were doing it. You could take it as fast as you want. You could take it as slow as you want. We were blessed to be able to cash flow the rig, and also as we move forward, we're doing the same thing with the conversion in general. So yeah, price was pretty big. But let's move on to reason number two. Reason number two is value. Just the purchase price itself for the rig that you're getting is a pretty good deal considering what you are really getting. After all, if you strip this down to just brass tacks, what you're buying here is a box truck. I mean, if you took everything off of this that makes it an ambulance, you take the sirens off, the PA system out, and all the lights are gone, what you're left with is a diesel powered box truck. And for the money you spend, you can get a great deal on one of these just for that alone. But there's more. You're looking at the motor itself that it comes with in this particular vehicle. It's a 7.3 Power Stroke. And then you're also looking at just like an unbelievably well-built box structure on the back of this thing, which is a definite plus. And it's something that you're just not going to get when it comes to other box vehicles, just like box trucks, rider trucks, and all those vehicles. You could certainly do not an ambulance conversion, but you can certainly do a camper conversion in. But these were built to haul people, and they're just better built altogether. Okay, so going back to the Power Stroke that's in this thing, it's a 7.3 Power Stroke once again. These motors are designed anywhere to last between about 400 to 500,000 miles. So they're very well built, they're super reliable, and they've got a proven track record. These motors were built before all the emissions equipment was put on them. There's still a huge following out there that loves these things, so there's plenty of them out there. I feel lucky to have it in this ambulance because this thing came with a curb weight the day it went into commission of about 10,300 pounds, and it's got a payload capacity. You can put up to about 3,000 pounds additional in the back of this thing. So not that a gas motor is bad, but the Power Stroke adds a lot of value for myself just because, I'm going to be hauling water tanks, everything from water tanks, solar power, cargo, everything else. Super heavy rig. I want the torque to be able to push this thing around. I think it probably will save me in terms of fuel costs as well, but time will tell that for sure. These things are also built unbelievably strong. The cage itself, or the structure of it, is built out of this 2-inch by 2-inch aluminum, which is 1/8 of an inch thick. All of it's welded together, and the cage itself is just radically strong. But then on top of that, there's more. They glue a really thick aluminum skin, this stuff, they glue this on top, and I've tried cutting that adhesive out, and it's like concrete. You can't hardly do it. I think you would destroy the aluminum before you're able to get these two separated between that skin and this bracing. Supposedly, they will hold up to 2.5 times their weight in an upside down position, like if you were to get into a rollover or something like that. And in this thing's case, that would be about 25,000 pounds of pressure, again, in an upside down state. If you're inside it, if you get T-boned or end up upside down, as long as you're properly secured, odds are you're going to end up just fine. So in summary, this thing is just a great value overall. It's got the box truck platform that I was hoping to get. It's got the motor that's just going to last and last forever. It'll probably last more miles than I'll ever be able to put on this in the time that me and my wife have it. And on top of that, it's safe. It's built like a fortress. It could probably be built for a storm cellar if it wasn't for the fact that it's not anchored to the ground. All in all, I think this is just a wonderful value for the price. And for a tiny home style RV that we were looking to build, I really think you'd be hard pressed to find a better platform than something like this to get started with. So reason number 3 that an ambulance works well as an RV conversion is because of the size. Now, when I say that, it's probably not what you're thinking. The reason I say it works well is because although it is a small platform, it's as big as it needs to be. And what I mean by that is I stand 6'2", and as you can see, I've got plenty of room in here. Now, I don't have a lot of headroom, but I certainly have enough headroom in order to make it work for me. Obviously, I wanted to be able to stand up straight in an RV conversion. And another thing regarding the size of this vehicle, not so much to do with the box itself, except just kind of for the height of the vehicle. When we first got on the journey and we were looking for a vehicle to either do a conversion in or a Class C or a Class B motorhome, we were really looking at the total height of the vehicle to begin with. And the reason for that is pretty simple. We didn't want to keep it in the driveway. We live in Oklahoma. Odds are, no, there's no odds. It will get hailed on at some point. I certainly don't want to see a big financial investment sitting out in my driveway and get smoked by a hailstorm. That's just bad news. So the other option would be store it in a storage facility. But again, we're kind of frugal. We don't want to spend the money that it would cost in order to pay the rent. No reason to do that. And plus, when we want to hit the road, we want to hit the road. We don't want to have to go down to the storage facility, grab the vehicle, bring it back, get it ready. It's just too much headache. When it's time to go, it's time to go. Now, what we were running into on the Class Bs and the Class Cs is they're pretty tall vehicles. And not only is the roof line really tall, but then on top of that, you've got an air conditioner up there as well. So that adds probably another 12, I'm guessing 12 to 15 inches on top of that. Again, we wanted to keep it at home if at all possible. And what we are restricted by at home is our shop has a 10-foot tall door in order to get it in there. And what we were figuring out is that the Class Bs and the Class Cs just weren't going to work. They were just simply too tall, and without having to cut a bigger hole in the shop and install a bigger garage door, and even if we could pull that off, we're really up against the trusses of the roof. really not worth the headache. So ultimately, we ended up choosing a cargo trailer to do a conversion with because the box size was about what we were looking for. Again, tiny home is the theme here. And it was short enough to actually fit here in the garage itself, or in the shop rather. Now, along the way, we bailed out on the cargo trailer, and we ended up deciding to go with the ambulance as a platform. That's a whole other story, and maybe we'll do a video on that later. But here at this point, we decided to do the ambulance because it will, in fact, fit, and it fits quite well inside of our shop. Matter of fact, I believe we've got probably about a foot of additional room when the garage door is up, and we could easily pull this in. And I've got enough room up there that we're going to be installing the solar panels up here on the roof as well. Once again, another video that'll be coming up here soon. But yeah, man, I mean, the size of it just works out great for us. It's not going to work for everybody, not at all. If you've got a big family or you're just really wanting a larger vehicle, the ambulance won't work. But when it comes to reason that it's a great platform for the conversion, for us, this was big, and the size of it actually made it a good choice for our conversion because it checked off the boxes that we needed it to check off for us. Something really cool about the ambulance is it is an 8-foot wide vehicle. Now, the reason that's really neat is because when you're talking about some of the vans that you can convert into a camper van, for instance, the Sprinter vans, those things I want to say are closer to 7 foot wide, and gets to where it's kind of pinching on the width. Now, in this, you could easily fit a queen size mattress in this thing and still have a few inches on each side worth of room. And that's big with me because, again, I'm 6'2". I don't want to be having to sleep at an angle on my bed, and I'm sure the wife would appreciate that as well. It's just a really good benefit to have that additional width. Again, we don't need a whole lot. And when I keep going back to the whole tiny home thing as a camper, we don't need a whole lot. It's just me and this my wife, and we've got a couple of pups that we take with us as well. We need a bed, but we want a full size, or not a full size bed, but we want a queen size bed. So we want the comfort of that. We want a restroom, we want a shower, and we want a dinette. In 100 square foot, all that is doable. And when it comes to the size of this, it just works out really perfect. So simply put, it's every bit as big as it needs to be, but no bigger. So something really cool about the ambulance, quite frankly, is the fact that it's an ambulance and how it comes right from the get-go. So far, we've talked about the price of the vehicle. We've talked about the value of the rig in terms of mechanically speaking, and also just the quality of the build. And then we've also talked, a little bit about the size and some of the advantages that has rather, especially if you're into kind of a minimalistic build like me and my wife are. But going back down to reason number 4 is really how the ambulance comes from the day you purchase it, just freshly being decommissioned. Okay, so it's practically an RV the day you pick it up. I mean, these things are designed to obviously transport patients around, so they're going to have a large amount of room going down the middle. They've got cabinets all over the place. There's cabinets on both sides. There's cabinets in the front. Ours came with a large bench over on the passenger side, if I remember correctly. And it's got a fair amount of countertops, not a killer amount, but for the space that you get, it's enough to put a microwave on. It's enough to drop a sink in there, and probably even a stove if you wanted to pack everything in a little bit tight. You are literally one bed away from this thing being a junior class CRV the day that you purchase it. There's a lot of videos on YouTube, and I don't. We chose to go a different route in terms of the bed. We didn't do a slide out bed, but a lot of folks will take that bench that's in there, take the cushion off the top, or the factory cushion, toss it, and make a slide out that comes out. So you've got kind of a smaller bed, but it would be perfect for one person. Being me and my wife, we decided to go a different direction. But guys, like I said, just from the word go, when you buy one of these, you're very, very close to it to be an RV just from the word go. It comes with rear heat and air already. Full disclosure on that, though, it does have to be running in order for the rear heat and air to work. Not really a problem if you're out and it's cold and you need to run that rear heat. It's a diesel. You could let it idle all night, won't hurt a thing. Once again, this is old enough, it really doesn't have the emission stuff on it that some of the new diesels have. So you can get away with doing that and it'll keep you cozy all night long. Same thing for the air conditioner for that matter, if that's what you choose to do. Um, Another benefit, especially if you have clingy dogs like we do, is that it's got a walk-through straight into the cab of the vehicle. Ours came with a little sliding door that goes back and forth. It's got a window in there, but it already has that. Now, if you choose to go with a Ford truck platform, or actually, as far as I'm aware, I think if it's any truck platform, oftentimes they don't come with that walkthrough in there. So that's something to consider if you decide to go ahead and buy an ambulance, is whether or not to go with a van platform, which does have the walkthrough, or if you want to go with a truck platform, which has some other benefits, including a little bit easier to service the motor. You can get a lot of aftermarket parts for the motor, like cold air intakes and things like that. That, frankly, I've looked for in the van. We're not having a really good run of luck trying to find those for the van. If we do it, probably going to have to fabricate it, but something to consider. The cabinets that they put in these things are unbelievably stout and strong. The hardware that's on these things is second to none. It's aluminum using stainless steel fasteners. Most of the plywood in this thing, actually, I think pretty much all of it, is 3/4 inch plywood, and it is no joke, folks. Coming from a guy who's tore it all out of his, I just can't tell you how impressed I really was with the construction of this thing. To begin with, we decided we were going to go ahead and try to keep some of the cabinets, but they're really modular. And when we got into it, what we discovered was they're kind of hard to take apart in pieces. Like, say, you just want to leave the lower part and remove the upper. Not saying it can't get done, it can. It's just a lot harder to do that. That was about the time we started discovering little nooks and crannies behind the cabinets that were there already, realizing how much wasted space there really was back there. And that's when we decided to go full out and gut the thing. But you don't have to do that. Like I said, one of the benefits of this is you don't have to, or you can choose to go crazy and go further with it. Another great thing about this is it comes with a 15 amp shore power, a transfer switch, a power inverter which goes from 12 volts to 110. And in our case, this rig came with, I believe it was three, I believe it was three 110 outlets throughout the vehicle. Once again, it lends itself perfectly if you really don't want to do a whole lot and get into an RV lifestyle super, super cheap and super easy to do it. That's enough to power your microwave. It's enough to power a lot of things if you just don't go crazy with it. And maybe you choose to use some 12-volt items like your refrigerator along the way just to help things out as well. Ours, I think, had about an 1800-watt inverter, which is good enough for most stuff. On our build that we're doing now, we went with a much bigger inverter. We went with a 3000-watt, but again, you do you. This is what's going to work for us. But let's say you decide to go crazy and just gut the thing. You want to start off with a blank canvas and do things the way you want to do things, right? And that's exactly what we decided to do. The neat thing about the Ambos, they're very square. And where that comes in handy is when you're putting very square items into the ambulance. And what I mean by that is a bed, very square, a restroom, very square, a dinette, enough said, right? You see where I'm going with this. It makes it really easy to bolt to the sides of the ambo because you're bolting square up against square rather than square against curved, like you might run into on, say, the walls of a Sprinter van, for instance. Being that we are building a minimalistic build, we still wanted a few luxuries, which was a shockingly large bathroom, a queen-size bed, and a dinette for two. The square construction enabled us to do that and get everything that we wanted to do without having to work really, really hard at it. And it just helps make the best of the space that you're getting. I think I said it before, but this thing comes with about 8 foot wide, 14 feet long. It's somewhere around 100 square feet. When you're building something like this, man, every square inch counts. You can't afford to give away anything. And that's one of the big reasons we decided anyway to go ahead and just start with a blank canvas and take everything out and start there. Last but not least, one of my favorite parts about this build is that although everything is pretty square, the ceiling on it is somewhat barrel shaped. So from side to side, it kind of curves down. And then from end to end, it kind of curves down as well, with the peak being in the middle. So like what we did was we used a plank ceiling on this, and it just leads to a really cool barrel looking ceiling. One of my favorite things about the build so far in terms of aesthetics. I just love it. It's a focal point when you're standing on the ground and you look up. It's amazing. So there you have it. When you buy one, it's pretty much instant RV. All you got to do is add a bed and it's ready to go. Definitely one of the high points is just simply how this thing comes. You could buy a Sprinter van and pay tens of thousands of dollars more for it. Comes with an empty shell. You could buy a box truck, empty shell. You park cargo trailer, again, empty shell. You spend your money on one of these, and man, you're 90% there already in terms of creating an RV with what's already in there. Once again, you don't have to stop there. You could go further like we did, but bottom line, it's fantastic just the way it comes. Reason number 5, and okay, yeah, it kind of rides the coattails a little bit of how the Ambo comes as a decommissioned ambulance, but it's a really super cool feature, and I want you guys to see this because it's really epic when it comes to what this thing offers you in terms of outdoor storage. And this is something that you rarely see in an RV until you get to like up to the Class A's, for instance. These outdoor storage compartments that open up, there's a ton of space in there. Depending on your needs for space, you could actually sacrifice some of that and create that space into indoor space. But what you really have to do is figure out what you got to store in it on the inside and on the outside, and then decide what cabinets to trim out, keep, change, whatever. It's all up to you. That's the beauty of it. So what we've got here is the rear passenger side storage compartment. And I want to show you this. All right. Now, as you can see, we've cut down about half of this cabinet to make room for our bed on the inside. But this wasn't always there. It was pretty much cabinet from bottom to the top. And that, guys, is well over 6 foot tall. That's probably closer to 7 or maybe a little bit more than that. Even hogging up half of it, there's still a ton of space down here, which we intend to use. We're not really 100% sure where everything's going just yet, but I just wanted you to see this is an amazing amount of space. Right in front of that compartment, there's another compartment. And this goes on and on all around the rig. But check this out. Not too bad. It's probably about 16 inches deep, maybe about 19 inches wide. I'm guessing 23, 24 tall. Super convenient. It's stacked full of stuff right now, but although it's a small space, it's an excellent place. Maybe you can put a jack or a bottle jack, just whatever you need. Okay. This is a primary example of what I was talking about. Like if you decide to go ahead and remove some indoor storage, but you still want to keep a little outdoor storage. This cabinet right here. Okay, sorry about the angle. I've got a lot of stuff in my shop right now. It makes it a little difficult to get the best angle on everything, but just bear with me. So what I've got here is one of the benches for the dinette. And as you can see, well, this will flip up and you could access the storage from inside, but you could also access the storage from the outside as well. Plenty of storage from the outside, readily accessible, but you still get the benefit of having the indoor space for the dinette as well. Now, I suppose you can get rid of this compartment if you wanted to. I don't know why you'd want to, though. This is where the batteries are housed for the ambulance itself. There's 2 huge batteries in there. There's one under the hood up front. That's really a functional cabinet. We're going to leave that one alone. Now, this is another cabinet, kind of like the first one that I showed you. It's on the driver's side rear. And again, about half of the cabinet is gone. We use that to cut in for where the bed platform sits, but we do still have the lower half of the cabinet. From the factory, this is where the spare tire was kept, and there was some other stuff in there. So once again, sorry for the angle, folks. I've got more stuff than I could shake a stick at inside the shop right now, but what I'm showing you here is the back side of that cabinet. Up here is where the bed platform is on the inside, and then you scroll down as I'm doing right now, and you can see there's just a tremendous amount of space under there that you could use for just whatever you want. So these 2 cabinets were amazingly large, but we didn't feel like we needed all that room. We did sacrifice a good portion of these in order to build the bathroom that we wanted. And what you can see here is the floor of the bathroom, and that's just a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that's by no means finished. It just shows the divider point. What's down low, that's going to be some holding tanks for water, and what's above it, of course, that's going to be the shower pan. But as you can see, this is just an enormous amount of space that if we would have chosen to keep it, would have been phenomenal. But again, the sacrifice was worth it because we're getting one heck of a bathroom out of the deal. Okay, so what we've got here is the oxygen tank cabinet that the ambulance came with. What we think we're going to do with this is, for the most part, we're going to store our solar equipment in there, including batteries, power inverters, and things of that nature. But you can see it goes all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom. We've installed one little shelf in there here at this point, and I've got my little trickle charger because the van's not getting driven right now, but we do want to keep it charged. I'm really sorry that I couldn't really show you these outdoor storage compartments a little bit better. I did what I could. Again, the shop's a little bit cramped right now, and I'm really sorry about that. But the point being is that these really have a lot of storage in them. And if you got a lot of stuff to take with you, no doubt this is going to be your answer. Now, if you want to put more of your space on the inside, you can take them out, and you can take all of them out, or for that matter, you could just take a little bit of them out, like what we did, to make room for what's important to you and your build. So, in conclusion, you can see that just kind of the package that you get right out of decommissioning is pretty wonderful when it comes to building an RV, especially if you really don't want to put that much effort into it. It's great right from the word go. Now, once again, you can go as crazy as you want on this, and it's still a phenomenal package. But again, it's just really a super cool thing to have everything that we've talked about today. As you can see, the outdoor storage in these is definitely worth mentioning because it does offer a lot of value to the vehicle in terms of usefulness. And for that matter, think about all the Class Bs and Class Cs that you've seen out there. They don't offer this. You might get a pass-through underneath of it if you're lucky, but for the most part, a Sprinter van or a Class B or Class C, they just don't have this stuff, so definitely worth mentioning. Anyway, enough about that. Let's go to reason number 6. Okay, so we're going to get to the end of this video eventually, so I'll make this last one kind of a short road. Reason number 6 to do the conversion project, to me, it's just cool. And what I mean by that is this thing's been an ambulance its whole life. It served its time. This is a 2000 model ambulance. It was just pulled out of service last year. This thing has served out 24 years of service. It's retired for all practical purposes, and I'm able to take it out of retirement and put it back on the road. And to me, that resonates with me for some reason. It's just kind of a neat thing to do. It keeps it out of the scrap yards, and it just continues it on down the road, which to me is really neat. It's also kind of cool for another reason. How many people do you know that are converting an ambulance into a recreational vehicle? I'm going to wager a guess and say you probably don't know anybody doing that. There's just not many of us out there. And if you do know somebody, it's probably someone you've seen maybe on YouTube or something, somebody like me perhaps. And that kind of leads over into the fact that this thing really is a conversation piece. Over the last few months, I've started an Instagram kind of documenting my journey with this thing. And because I do share those Instagram posts over on Facebook as well, a lot of my friends and family see what I'm doing here. And let me tell you, I've heard from people that I haven't talked to in years. I've gotten engagement from old friends, even old high school buddies and stuff that get on there and that are liking the conversion and asking questions about it. And it really is a conversational piece. I had no idea how many people would be so intrigued over a conversion like this. It all started off innocent enough, but even when I go into work on Monday, and I've been working on it all weekend, the folks who know me and they know what me and my wife are doing with this, it's almost the first thing out of their mouth is, so what did you do on it this weekend? It's like the never-ending project, but it really is fun, and it opens up a lot of doors in terms of conversation. Now, there's no doubt that taking the time to do a conversion is going to take a lot more of your time than just simply going to a store and buying yourself an RV. In my opinion, it's worth the time that you spend. After all, you got to spend your time somehow, but it's important that you choose the right ways to do it. A big reason that I don't mind spending my time on this thing in order to do the conversion, and before I go any further, let me just state, like I said earlier, you don't have to do a full-out conversion. You can make this really pretty simple. But if you choose to go further, the deeper in it that you get, the more of your time it's going to take. Some of y'all have a lot of free time. Some of you hardly have any, kind of like myself, kind of like me and my wife, both actually. The reason I don't mind spending the time is because I actually get to do it with my wife. It's something that we both enjoy doing. Ever since we've met, we've thoroughly enjoyed doing projects together. And this is the perfect deal for that because this, like I said earlier, is like a never ending project. I think it's safe to say that everybody out there would agree with me when I say that we all spend too much time at work and not near enough time working on ourselves. That being said, something like this, it allows me the time to spend with my wife. We have a good time doing it together. There's no doubt that we've gotten into some heated debates regarding differences of opinion on this, but I still wouldn't trade that for the world. It would be fun just to do all by myself, and I wouldn't mind doing it. But it's been really a blast in order to have my wife along for the journey. We plan on going out in this thing together, and I just think it's super cool in order to do the build together as well. Well, it's finally the end of the video, and it's time to wrap things up. I really appreciate you. If you've lasted to this far in the video, thank you. It's much appreciated. Like and subscribe if it's something you're interested in and you'd like to continue watching this thing keep going. There's going to be a lot of videos that I post in the future, and they're going to include just some different product reviews, installation of different things that I bought for the rig, including solar panels, diesel heater. We have an airhead toilet that we're going to be putting in here soon. Just footage of some things that I've already done, for instance, like the wood floors, framing out the bathroom, building the dinette, and just some other stuff that you've seen a little bit of just staring over my shoulder while we're doing this. So if what we're doing here appeals to you and this is interesting, like and subscribe. I don't know if you've noticed yet, but I don't have a lot of subscribers at this point, so anything's going to help me get this thing off the ground, and it would be really, really appreciated if you would. Leave comments for me. I'd love to hear your opinion on what I've got going here. If you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear it. Once again, there's no rule book for doing a conversion like this, so any comments, good, bad, indifferent, or whatever, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this project. Anyway, I'm going to sign out. Happy adventures, folks. I look forward to seeing you next time. I'll see y'all then.